So S1000Rrs are incredibly expensive bikes, and this one is proving to be no different. So after buying this thing as a wreck, thinking I'd got myself an awesome bargain, only to find out that the frame was cracked. So this frame protector has done the exact opposite, and it's broken our frame. And the oil sump too, so I needed two hugely expensive parts. But I've got some good news. I've managed to get the frame fixed for 350 bucks, super cheap, and it looks like it's brand new. So hopefully my luck is about to change because we've got a massive episode planned. We've got to get all of this gear on the bike and then hopefully get this baby rolling by the end of the episode. So fingers crossed, let's get into it. So first up, we've got a huge decision to make, what to do with this spare frame. And I'm hoping you, the viewer, can help me make that decision. Do I sell it and try and recoup some funds for this build? Or do we use it to build a complete bike from scratch? Now there's a thought. Now in order to actually get the frame fixed, I didn't want the welder putting massive amounts of energy through the frame when all the electrics were still connected. So we're gonna connect everything back up, and at least that way I'm gonna get some stuff off the table and we'll get the bike running again. So if you remember on the last episode, we removed the evap canister off the left side of the bike, but I didn't have one of these. This is the actual evap plug. So last of the electrical devices to go on. Oh no, I dropped it. Hope I didn't break it. And fingers crossed, this should just be a straight plug and play into here. Job done. Just need to tie that off just there, and that's another electrical delete done. I also deleted the ABS. However, I didn't actually put the ABS delete plug on. So this has come from L2M Alpha Racing. So thanks S1K Racing. I'll put a link in the description or in the video as to where you can buy a whole bunch of performance parts for your S1K or M1K. Anyway, this should just be a straight delete module plug and play. So that's done. All I need to do is tie that off with a couple of zip ties just so it doesn't fall anywhere and make a noise when I'm riding. And fingers crossed, this is one of the last things we need to do. This is the stand delete plug. So we removed the stand on the first episode. This is the actual delete. So this is the little thing that's got like a closed circuit. So it's got the little resistor at the top. Simple plug and play. There we do. All we need to do now is tie this up somewhere so that it doesn't get in the way. So fingers crossed, I've got everything connected back the way it should be. I've got the deletes on, I've got the battery in, I've got the ECU on, I've got whatever that computer thing there is, and the screen's on. I think we're good. Brilliant, excellent, cool. Don't worry about those faults, we'll worry about them later. So now we can actually move onwards and upwards. And what I'm thinking I might do first, before I tackle this huge mountain of work of carbon fiber fixing I've got to do, is actually just try and get rid of as much off this table as possible, because it is slightly overwhelming looking at this many parts and thinking I've got to put it all on the bike. So let's start with some of the simple stuff. So I figure the easiest thing to do is carbon fiber. RPM Carbon have once again come to the party with this bike, and we have dropped thousands of dollars on carbon, because I figure we might as well get carbon that has the matching twill as the BMW M Carbon that's made by Ilmberger Carbon. That's a lot of carbon words in one sentence, but let's get some of this installed and see how sexy it looks on this bike. We're gonna clean the rest of the back of the bike before we can put it on, but the very first thing we can do is the front guard. Okay, so it actually looks like I've completely forgotten to order the rear hugger, and making this huge big RPM order that cost me thousands. I just must have been doing it too late at night. So I'm gonna have to get the rear hugger later, get that delivered in the next couple of weeks. But what I can do is get the frame covers on, get the swing arm covers on, and then start to build the carbon back up on the bike. Pretty good. And this stuff goes on pretty easily. You can either use 3M double-sided tape and plenty of it, or you can use a special type of silicone. So this is actually coming together quite quickly. We've got like most of the carbon on the bike now. Obviously I've still got to order that rear hugger, but we've got the frame guards on, the swing arm guards on, we've got the front guard on. It's starting to look more carbon-y, carbon-esque, carbon-y, whatever you want to call it. I've got this sprint filter. I want to put this on before I put the tank back on to test it. I got this from Moto Garage. So if you need any performance parts, hit up Moto Garage. I'll put the link below. Let's chuck it in. That's actually pretty clean. It almost looks brand new, but it's cheap and it's paper. So, sprint filter. I think this is a, not sure if it's a P08 or what it is. Oh, look at that. Damn sight better. Another job done. It's too easy. I won't say that because shit will go wrong. It's not too easy. So we're sort of doing two jobs at once. I've actually got my lovely wife outside and she is prepping the old fairings, the OEM fairings. She's taking the stickers off, she's cleaning them, getting all that done. And then at her request, can I do that thing where I squeeze your head? Yeah, there, squeeze your head. At her request, I'm actually gonna move on to the switchgear, and I'm gonna try and switch out the switchgear. And there's a reason behind that. I feel I need to be transparent because she sells everything that I take off the bike. There's an old saying that as soon as it hits the ground, she's got it on eBay. So how much do you stand to make off this switchgear, this OEM switchgear left and right? Let's hear the truth. How much?
It's my part of the business, not your business.
So it's not, you're not even going to tell me what you're going to sell it for? Nope. That is ruthless. What are you going to spend the money on? Hey?
Clothes.
Clothes and shoes. Clothes and shoes. Guess I better get to work and get this off. Now there is actually a secret to how you get the left-hand switchgear off. You've got to pull this back a little bit and then there's a little nut just inside that. So you want to look for that nut and then unscrew it and that bolt will come the whole way out and then you can slide this whole sleeve off and then you can take the screws off the back of that, unplug it and pull it off as well. Is that frustrating? It's good, therapeutic. The bolt is now out, so this should all be loose. I should just be able to pull this all the way out and I'm pretty sure I just unclip the electrical connector here and then we should be able to put the new Jet Prime stuff on. So look, I don't know if I've done this right, but I'm pretty sure you've got to keep this here and you actually take the sleeve off just here and then you reconnect, and then you actually end up with almost two sets of switchgear on the left. You end up with the adjuster and then the selector, and then you end up with all the race buttons. So fingers crossed I've done it right. Now I've just got to put that original bolt back through there, through that little hidden spot, just to hold that all just there, hold it all in spot and move on to the other side. So I've actually half given up on the clutch side switchgear because I'm not quite sure. I think I need to download the instructions and be a real man and just admit my failures. But this side, the throttle side, looks awesome. Look at that. And it's so easy to put on too. You just take the old start-stop button off, and then you just slide these over as like covers. And one side's got the buttons in it, the other side's just a nice, neat little cover. And then you take the next 10 years of your life doing up this screw because you don't have the right tools. And you went to Bunnings for your tools instead of some proper tool shop. Done. So look at that, much, much better. And that looks awesome up there. Here we go, pop around, have a look at that. Look at that, that looks very, very cool. I haven't put it back in place yet, the clip on, but how freaking awesome is that? Everything's at your fingertips, nice and integrated. So the problem I'm having is over here, and I just don't know for the life of me how you are supposed to get this handle back on, considering it needs to be plugged in here, and you've got all this extra stuff here with another plug there, and somehow it's got to fit. When I put that on properly, somehow it's got to fit under this. It doesn't work. So I need to download the instructions and figure it out properly. So I'm gonna leave that for a minute. I'll finish off this front and then I might actually put the start-stop button in. So, switchgear is mostly done. Start-stop button works, let's check that. Perfect, excellent, we've got power, everything's working there. Only thing I haven't done is just finish off exactly how I'm gonna mount this with this stupid little piece of plastic that's remaining on the toggle that you have to keep. So, the key is hidden away in the front there. Now what I thought I might do is, because I'm on a timeline and I really want to get this bike ready and up and running and working by the end of the episode, and I've got roughly 4 days to do it in because there's a track day on Friday, is I might look at what I've got in terms of the carbon that's not damaged and see if I can get any of that back on the bike. So like the front and the rear sort of sub pieces. And then we're gonna have to tackle the elephant in the room, which is that cracked sump. But luckily for me, over here, I have a new sump. So in this box, I've got a brand new sump for the S1000Rr. So thank you to Julian at Morgan & Wacker for getting this so quickly. And there we go. And this will be probably a new thing for me because I've never tackled this much mechanical work. So the other thing I've done is I've got all new bolts, and I've also got some high heat RTV silicone just to lock it all in place. So yeah, first things first, the carbon, let's do it. So I got something else today from BMW as well. I got the replacement piece that goes on the back. So if I can build this up again, maybe I can actually get the back of the bike looking like it's at least half completed. Carbon on, carbon on, carbon. How good does that look? I just got to put a few little bolts in it and that should hold it all in place. So we've got this pretty cool order from Alif Performance. I think it's ALIF Performance. Again, I'll put a link. And this guy makes carbon, like what are they called? Light block-offs, light inserts. But the problem is it's really hard to get on with all the OEM gear. So somehow I've got to manipulate the plastic to get it up and over without snapping anything. And that's not going to be easy. Oh, there we go. I just dropped heaps of it off. Actually, that wasn't so hard after all. So I've just got to secure it in place somehow. And that's pretty much how it looks. It's fake headlights for racing bikes. How cool is that? Carbon, 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 and carbon. And it's all the same twill as well. Right, let's get that screwed in. So I've actually mocked up the bike. I've got all the fairings back on except those tiny little carbon pieces that sit up there, just so I can get a feel for how it looks. And it's starting to look pretty shit hot. I'm pretty keen to see how it's gonna look with the actual color, the whitish, creamyish color against all this carbon. And then I've also learned something else. So come in here and I'll show you what I've just learned. My problem with the switchgear is actually pretty straightforward. If you have a look at this switchgear here, none of these say heated grips, and this is a heated grip. This plug here is the only plug it says that I need to plug in. So that means that this plug over the other side that I was having trouble with, trying to get that clamp on, is completely redundant. So that means I only need one plug, so I can take the other plug off, I can put the switchgear on properly. Another job done. So next up, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna strip this bike again. I know, kind of pointless, but at least I got to see how it looked. And then I'm gonna prep the fairings, but before I do that, I'm gonna strip this sump off and bite the bullet and do a job that scares the crap out of me. So check it out, I've managed to fix it. That is awesome. And you can still use this little dongle thing, however you use that. I really don't know, God knows. But then you've got all the buttons here, and then you've got the start stop, and then you've got the integrated buttons over there. So that is wicked. Okay, so you could say I am just a little bit nervous. Geez, these bolts are not done up very tight, hey? They must be like 10 Newton meters or something. So I've removed the exhaust from here back, and I'm hoping I can just get to all these bolts. I don't know what I'm gonna do about this stripped one, and then just drop the sump down. I'm hoping it's that simple. Murphy's Law it won't be, in which case I've got a professional I can call. Fingers crossed. I don't often pull engines apart. I don't know if you can call this pulling an engine apart, but I don't often do this on my bikes. So this is definitely a new thing for me. So I ended up having to loosen off the header bolts just so I could move the headers out of the way to get to those couple of front bolts. But then after that, the sump almost fell down by itself. It was actually quite simple. And then to put it back in, I just replaced the O-ring on one of the breather tubes coming out of the sump. And then black siliconed all around it, put it back up into place and torqued the bolts down neatly. So I'm pretty stoked with myself, to be honest. I'm not even a mechanic, I'm just a YouTuber, but I managed to take the sump off a bike, and not only that, a modern bike, and refit it. And I'm pretty sure I've done it correctly. I've even torqued everything down to spec. And now we're gonna move on to some more fun stuff, because I've actually got to try and fit these. I've got to try and fit the carbon wings we've got, so let's check them out. Because these things came from RPM Carbon last week, and they look absolutely sick. So not bad. How freaking cool does that look? It's actually coming together quite nicely. I've stripped it apart again because we're now onto the fairings, and we've got some fixes to do first. So I've had to do a little bit of gluing just to glue some brackets back in place. I'm going to reinforce those with fiberglass, so don't worry your pretty little faces about super glue. I will be using fiber and resin. I've taken the tank off. Tank is off now. I'm about to empty that into a fuel container because it's full of fuel. I've taken the fuel cap off, and we're pretty much good to sand this all down. So all of these grey plastics are just going to get sanded down with probably like 240 grit just on the machine. That's all it really needs. Maybe I'll do a hand sand at 600, and then we're going to undercoat it all. And then we're gonna paint it. We might not get it painted in this episode, but after that, really all we've got to do is fix the carbon, which should take me about a day. I don't know why I'm talking like a news presenter, but I am. And put the bike back together, dyno it, put the slicks on, and we're good to go to the track. So let's get to it. Let's get this tank emptied, let's get the fuel pump out of it, and start sanding. It's probably a little bit late at night to start sanding, so I'll leave it till tomorrow. But yeah, let's get into it. Okay, hold the phone on sanding for a second because something else very cool just turned up in the mail. So I want to open this and show you what it is, just because I think it's going to be very cool. I'll be waiting for it for like 3 weeks. So let's check it out and see if I actually got what I ordered and does it look any good. I'll just rip the box. Here's a hint, it's coming from Canada. Can you guess? Anyone who knows this stuff should know what this is. That's a really cool box, actually. Some people have whole channels devoted to unboxing, but ready? I'm gonna do an unboxing special. Done. Moto seat cover. Now I made sure I washed my hands because I knew what this was. Look at that. That is awesome. I'm pretty sure that's suede, like Alcantara suede. Very, very cool. So, how cool does that look? I have finally gone and bought something which I think I absolutely need in order to take my builds to the next level. Now, if you remember in some of my previous builds, I used a tent to paint my bikes. That doesn't cut it when you're trying to sell $20,000 bikes. So I've taken the next step and bought a 6 meter by 3 meter blow up spray booth. I hope this is gonna work and not blow away in the wind. The biggest problem I had with my spray booth is that air was not escaping and I was getting dust settling on my fairings. So this is a blower. It circulates air around the tent and it has, I think, a filtering system, and this just keeps the tent blowing up. So the real problem is going to be, once I unpack this and use it once, can I fold it back up to fit inside this bag? I very much doubt it. Two more hours of prep and we've finally got everything outside in the sun and drying. So if anyone tells you that building bikes is easy, tell them to shove it up their bum, because this shit takes a long time. Like, I would say I've probably spent 4 or 5 hours already just prepping, sanding, masking, wet sanding, and I've still got to lay down my first coat of paint. So that's where we're at. There's not even that much to do. But the cool thing is now we've got that paint booth up and it's looking pretty sick. Just to give you some perspective as to how big this thing is, let me show you. Look at that. That is massive. Like, that's most of my backyard. And yeah, so now I just gotta wait for that stuff to dry. As soon as it's dry, I'll get it set up in the paint booth, start mixing up some paint, and then start laying down probably 3 coats of color and then 3 coats of clear. Wish me luck. So our paint room is all prepped and ready. We've got everything laid out. We've got a couple of pieces hung up, but it's just a couple of degrees too warm to paint. So it does cool down a little bit when you actually pressurize it and run that other airflow through it. But what I thought I'd do now is actually get some of the carbon ready. So we should be able to get this carbon fixed. Well, I'd like to be able to fix it anyway. So what I'm gonna do, we'll let that light readjust. What I'm gonna do is I've got my fiberglass kit, all my fiberglass gear, and I'm going to basically, on the back of each piece, I'm going to fiberglass reinforce the back, and then on the front, I've got some new carbon fiber where we can lay down some new weave straight across it. So fingers crossed I don't screw it up, but luckily it's got a big BMW decal going over it anyway, so it doesn't matter if I don't get 100% perfect, but as I said, I would like to improve the quality of my builds, so this is a good chance for me to try one of those small things and see if I can nail it. Our sponsor, Matt from Clean Ride Brisbane, also just dropped off this. Remember this exhaust, the Vandemon? It was fully massively scratched up. Now look at it, it's all been polished. Yes, it's still got a couple of scratches along the top, but we can actually put this back on the bike now. And that is gonna look sick. So what I might do is I'm gonna get one of those protective R&G wraps that go around the back here. And that should be exactly what we need to finish up that side of the bike. So I'm just gonna mix this all up on a 2-to-1 ratio, 2-to-1 of paint. Let me show you the color of the paint first. It's pretty cool. It actually comes out as like almost like a creamy silver. It's a really, really cool color. This has got to go. We can't be that quiet on the racetrack. Oh, if I can get it in there. Come on. It's coming out. It's going to be a little bit louder. Oh shit. Oh shit. Yeah, boy. Right, let's fire it up and see how it sounds. Scratch that. I realized I don't have a tank on there. That's kind of critical when you want fuel to go boom boom. So it's the next morning. I came down thinking, okay, all the paint's going to be hard. It's going to be done. And then I thought I might just top up the radiator. And now look, we've got a leak right here on the edge of the top radiator. Now that is not cheap because that's plastic, and I don't think that can be repaired because it's got to be under pressure. So I'm probably up for another $1,000 just to repair that. I don't think there's any way that I can repair that. And it's a pretty big job. I've got to take the radiator apart again. But I think I'll still go ahead and do a fairing mock-up anyway. I just want to get a feel for how it looks. So let's get that done, push the bike out in the sun, get a couple of happy snaps, and then try and tackle the radiator another day. So what an episode. This bike is coming along awesome. I love the color. I love everything about it. And we've got through a lot of good stuff on this episode. We've put a lot of stuff on the bike, but we've also had a couple of massive red flags. And the first of those is this whole front section. This front wheel I've got a suspicion that it's actually buckled and it's a carbon wheel. So that's $2,000 to $3,000 if that's the case. We've also got the radiator. We've got a leak in the radiator. There's another $1,000 to fix. So I could well be in the red, as in way behind on this budget, at least 3 or 4 grand. So the major stuff we've got left to do is the bike needs a tune. We need to figure out the front wheel. We're gonna fix the radiator. We need to spend about 6 hours prepping and detailing all the carbon because at the moment it's just held together with fiberglass. So we've still got a lot to do. We've got some more carbon to order for the rear as well, the hugger, and then this tailpiece just needs to be actually fitted to the bike. So we're waiting on that connection part to come later today. But that's around about it for this episode. Thanks so much for watching. One last thing I'm going to try and do is start it and see if it actually runs. Try not to blow it up. And fingers crossed, this sounds awesome because we've taken that silencer out. I think the battery might be flat.